Hello, it's Monday night. I'm really sorry I'm not live. I tried and had some technical issues, so I'm really sorry about that. Let's start tonight with Bitcoin, which is really exciting because we have, of course, hit that big 50% level. If we look at this in the Bitcoin futures, which is now really the biggest exchange in terms of volume, it's really, for a lot of people in America, the only way they can trade Bitcoin. And remember, if Bitcoin futures are not like buying spot Bitcoin, where one Bitcoin is always one Bitcoin, whether the price goes up or down. When you are buying futures or buying Bitcoin in the futures, it's a margin position. You have to pay to hold it. And so I think it makes it a little bit more sensitive. So with the gap higher over the weekend, we saw a pretty interesting weekend move. Normally they've been very quiet. This has been very squeezy. And here we have tagged this 50% retrace from the high that we made in November 2021 to the low that we made in November 2022. Here we are, end of November 2023. So I'm really looking at whether we can hold above this 42,000 level or whether we're going to continue a little bit higher. I think if we do come back, good chance that we potentially, just 50% of today's candle, but there is a good chance that maybe over this next week in a bigger pullback, we could fill that gap. However, Bitcoin futures, have been trading at last week they're trading all last week pretty much at a really good premium to spot Bitcoin price, $800 or more. And if we look at where we are in the Bitcoin spot price, let's move on to that one. We haven't quite tagged that 50% retrace level. It's at 42,235 here in the spot, and if we go down to the daily, we haven't quite tagged it. And if we are going to make a little bit of sideways consolidation or pause here, this level is likely to get retested on the high. So if you're long and you'd like to take some off, I took a little bit off when we got up above this 40,000 level. What I've done is I've got rid of my leverage positions. I'm quite comfortable to ride the waves, without any leverage in Bitcoin. But I had a small, not very, very leveraged, but I did have a small leverage position for this squeeze move, and I've taken some off. I do think there's quite a good chance here. When I zoom out and look at this was 5 waves up, and I think this was 3 waves back. I'm not an Elliott wave person, first off, remember. But I think that this looks like a wave 2, and potentially I think we could do a wave 4 and one more push higher here before we are likely to see a pullback. And if we hold above this 40,000 level and around these lows, there's a good chance that all we do is pull back towards this 40,000 level. We've got a month, just over a month. I think the deadline for the first ETF application to be approved, the final last day, is the 10th of January. So there's quite a small window in January when that's going to happen. It's just, I'm having really bad, not in a good way, but bad memories remembering what happened when the CME futures were launched and how the Bitcoin price really, really rallied into it, 19,800, and it caused a significant amount of selling because we rallied so fast before we got there. So I'm having little bits of flashbacks and reducing my position as we get closer to that application date. I think there's quite a good chance that we'll see a nice spike higher, and I might sell some on the spike, to be honest, because I just don't want to be in on a nasty reversal shakeout. Have bad memories. I mean, I was expecting 20,000 to be a big deal, but that was a really big deal. So what I'm hoping for, if this is going to be quite a nice 3-wave correction, wave 4 here on the hourly, is that while Bitcoin does that, altcoins do some catch up, because there are quite a lot of altcoin charts that are in a kind of sideways 3-wave correction also, and some of them look quite good to continue higher. They're kind of like the look of the chart. So I really would like, we've seen that in previous bull runs, you know, Bitcoin will make a really big move and then it'll pause and go sideways, and profits will be taken in Bitcoin and recycled into other altcoins to do the catch up move. And so I'm really hoping that that lovely pattern continues. If we take a look at ETH obviously was underperforming, but we finally made a new high. I just want to look at this on a weekly though, with a little bit of warning here, because if I have a big target of 3,000 with this move in ETH, but we're not going to ride that in a straight line. And that's basically based on a fib pattern. So from the low in 2018, December, to the high that we made in November 2021, we bounced from a kind of funky double bottom, a 786 fib level. When you reverse to the 786 fib and you close and hold above the 61.8, your target is the 38.2. It's just what I noticed. Now, that doesn't, it's not a guaranteed target. It's just most often that's where it goes to next. So, but what I also noticed is that this rally from the low that we made in June 2022 has been very choppy and overlapping. So if we look what we did here with this first high in August, when we retested it in April 2023, we made a marginal new high and then a very big pullback. And here we are again, marginal new high. I'm really hoping that this doesn't translate into a really deep pullback and the bottom of the channel. For now, it's not quite a reversal yet. It's just a bit of a tail on today's candle, isn't it? And I think that we, you know, whenever I'm looking at swings like this, for me, you know, I kind of get very worried if we, I'm looking for always a bigger correction if we close underneath a 236 retrace. So from the low, that's 20,087. That's also, you know, kind of where the daily 20 moving average is, but that's also giving back 3 days of rallies. So short term, I also look at these, you know, hourly moving averages. As long as we still ride them higher, which we are pretty nicely, we're still going up. But if we were to lose these lows here and another swing lower, then yeah, we are potentially lining up a bigger correction this week after. I mean, let's face it, we had a really nice squeezy run all the way from last Monday. We've rallied for, you know, for a week. And so a little bit of a pullback to start this week wouldn't be crazy. And especially with these bigger blue chips like Bitcoin and ETH, if they can do that, hopefully we will see some recycling into some altcoins. If you look at a lot of charts today, if we look at Bitcoin dominance, this has been such a strong move in Bitcoin that most charts, if you look at most altcoins against Bitcoin, they look pretty nasty. And yeah, so I would like to see that reverse. Potentially this Bitcoin dominance is a little bit of a double top level. We'll see. I expect this to continue higher for now though, and that kind of makes sense with what's going on with the big picture and the ETF. So let's look at some more. First off, let's look at Solana, which has been a super big performer. Now, here on the daily, we had this lovely rally from the middle of October, which topped out middle of November, and here we are in a little bit of a pullback. Now, as you know, I'm always looking for like 3 wave corrections back to the moving average and turn up again, and that's what we got very nicely with the rally from the 22nd of November. The problem is I'm always cautious if, you know, 3 wave corrections like this can quite often turn into bigger 3 wave corrections. So this is 1, 2, and then another load of correction before we continue the trend again. And the first sign of that I'm always watching for is in this second leg, the B leg they call it. I don't like to see a 3 wave correction. So I was long Solana here. And where we paused, unfortunately, has a bit of a look of a 3 wave correction. Now, sometimes they're equal measured moves. Sometimes they go a little bit further than that. And so if I'm not sure, I put my fibs on from low to high. And if we break underneath the 236 fib, which we did in Solana, it's at 62.20, I get out of the way and wait for it, because I think that then we are quite likely to potentially do a bigger kind of 50% pullback, and if I take that away, so I'm out of Solana because I think that potentially this is a big 1, 2, 3, and that does mean that we might come back towards 50 and these this previous double bottom again, and maybe a slightly little bit lower. If we look at where we are on the daily, 50 moving average is a long way away. So the other thing, what should hold, so if I connect the lows and draw it as a parallel channel, so I draw from this low to this low and I project it from this first high. Sometimes you kind of have to wobble them a bit to fit, but it's kind of got the look of that channel, so potentially back to the bottom of this channel would be the first support, and if that breaks, I think that we go back in a bigger equal measured move. So I'm flat Solana at the moment. Now if you're a big hodler and you're not using a ton of leverage, you can ride out these corrections, no worries. Big picture, if we look at the weekly here in Solana, you have this lovely bullish cross of our weekly moving averages. I do think it's got more upside. My target was 69, and above 69 I think we're headed, you know, for 137 if not 168 next in Solana. But for now we are in a little bit of a sideways correction with a lower high. If we take a look at Link, so many of these altcoins are doing the same thing. So here on Link on the weekly, look, lovely bullish look. So I said if we reverse to the 786 fib, your target's usually a 38.2. Here we did in Link, we did this lovely long-term weekly triple bottom and an 886 fib retrace. Now that's from the low in 2018 to the high that we made in 2021. This is a proper OG coin, isn't it? Now, people say, well, where does the 78, you know, what if it's 61.8 is the fib number, where does 786 and 886 come from? Well, 786 is the square root of 61.8, and 0.886 fib retrace is the square root of 0.786. So that's where they come from. Now, we are going to trade sideways, holding above this weekly 200 moving average, which for me is pretty bullish. It's quite a new moving average zone. And if we look at this on the daily, then we broke out for some pretty nice sideways consolidation. But what I don't want this to end up being, again, is another kind of three-wave measured move or unable to make a new high. And so I'm going to go to a lower time frame here. This is how I'm looking at this. And if I measure with fibs from this high to this low, again it's doing that 886. You know, markets have favorite fib retrace levels, and that's exactly what we've done. We reversed with a double top of this 886 fib level at 16.15, and when you close underneath the 786, for me we're going to come back to this 50% level, which is here at 14.74. and again we could probably draw that. So we're looking for 14.74. We could probably say, is this also a little bit of a channel? We've got 3 touches on the bottom, and yeah, kind of Elliott waves, people are very fond of parallel channels. You kind of, sometimes you have to fiddle them to fit a bit, but you get the best fit. And then the bottom of this channel here, I think, is where we likely to come back to 14.7. So unfortunately, so 3 waves down, 3 waves up, 1 more down, and then if we obviously break down from this channel, because we've already got 3 touches on the bottom, I would be looking for a bigger equal measured move pullback, which will bring us probably back to around here, and I would be bearish back underneath 11.44. 11.44 is on the weekly. I don't think we should kind of go back underneath it, because this for me was the confirmation level that we were going higher. I don't think we will, but that's how we're looking in Link. So another altcoin that's in a little bit of a pullback corrective move, and a lower high today. Now we've got some requests. Let's take a look at those. The first one of our requests, let's see where I hid them. We are going to look at, I'll find it, doesn't matter, we'll start again. Now I'm going to look at ARK, which I haven't looked at for a while. Let's look at ARK. against tether. Now here, let's go to the weekly and kind of have a look at where we are, because we've had a spectacular rally from this low. Let's look at it on the daily. Did this make 5 waves up? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. I think it did very nicely, which means our big wave 1 is complete. Now, a normal kind of ideal retrace of a wave 1 would be like 50 or 61.8. The problem is that actually it could come all the way back, you know, and do a crypto retrace to 886 and still be a wave 1 and do a really big swing next. So what we are looking for though is 3 waves and ready to go again. I like how we're hanging out here around this daily 50 moving average, but we haven't closed. We dropped underneath this 50% retrace level from this low to this high, and it's become a little bit of resistance. We can't seem to be able to get back above it, and so I think that there is a risk that we fall a little bit further. And when I look left and see what we did in this price range before, you can see it was really choppy. This 50%, you know, with support and resistance way back. So here we are still doing it, and the support then is a little bit lower, 0.96. We are kind of going back and forward around that round number 1 in ARK, and unless we close above 1.13, I think that there is a risk that we drop to 0.96 in one more swing lower before we finish. If you think about it, you know, quite often these corrections finish with a 5-wave drop, and that this would then be 1, 2, 3, this is a 4, and we've got one more drop down. So not quite ready as a buy yet for me in ARK, and 0.96 might be where we drop to before we go up again, and that would then make it quite nice and easy, because back above this daily 50 would be a buy signal. In terms of would I want to short it, no, I would, but you know, it depends if I got a good entry or not, because that's not too far to the next target. So I kind of like to look at risk reward, and I don't know if that would have it for me. Okay, the next one that we're going to look at is LOOM. Okay, I had all these charts ready somewhere and hid them very cleverly. So let's take a look at LOOM. LOOM tether. Now this one, when we look at this on the daily, this has been consolidating in this range for what, 4, 6, 7 weeks. So we had this really nasty sharp drop in October, and now we've had these little inside bars riding above this weekly 20 moving average, building a base hopefully for at least a bigger correction. So do you know, when you have a nasty drop like this, you'll have a nasty drop, then you'll have a B leg, and then you quite often, you want it to rally a bit more, because you quite often get a third wave before the correction is over. But for me, this is not a, you know, flat moving averages just kind of going sideways isn't really a trade either way yet. So yeah, I have to say, being underneath these daily moving averages the way we are, unless we can get out of them, the risk is that we fall further. So we're going to fall from this consolidation down here to the 200-day moving average, which is at sort of 0.08 range, you know. And if we were to do that and we put our big fib retrace levels on, this was quite a nasty drop in this one. We could do that for this whole swing. That would mean a retest and potentially a double bottom at this 886 level at 0.088. And if you think about it, you know, when Link was building a base above this 886 level, it tested like 3 or 4 times before we got a launch of it. And so I'm afraid, I think that, yeah, unless we recover some of these daily moving averages, and for example, this daily 20 moving average, we have not been able to close and hold above it really since the middle of November. So I think that we are more likely to go down and say hi to this 200 moving average. Not bullish for me yet, unfortunately, in LOOM, and a a break of this sideways consolidation is more of a short setup for me. So let's take a look at hook. So hook. Now this is a much nicer look. Look at this. First off, we've built a really nice base here since the summer. We have gotten above the weekly 20 moving average, but the most important thing was this previous high, because this is what keeps us in a weekly downtrend. You know, when you're underneath these highs and you're making lower highs and lower lows, you're in a downtrend, and we have reversed this when we take this out. So in terms of trend, we are looking pretty good for another move high. I'm going to take this most recent swing first of all and see how far we are from this 236 fib level, and it's at 1.449, and that's also where the weekly 50 moving average is, this previous high and these lows. So this becomes kind of a really nice magnet target level at 1.449 next in hook. And here on the daily, you see how this 200-day moving average was resistance, 4 days, and then resistance, and now we've gotten above it, it's support. I'm waiting for this to make a base and turn up for the next swing higher to that 1.449 target. Now here on the 4 hour, it's not shouting by yet, is it? Quite. But if we draw this channel like this, or we break out from this consolidation, I think that we would be on our way up again. That's one way to look at it. Or if we take out this swing high, or if we were to take out the 236 fib from this swing high, I think it is setting up and a breakout from this consolidation or above 1.12, and this kind of tricky level, I would rather mark it like this, would be a buy for me. There, above 1.12 would be a buy for me. 1.44 first target for hook. Let's go up again, and that's that big 236 fib level, and then above 1.449 we might have a bit of a pullback here. Rock and roll with 1.95 and then 2.36. A big 50% retrace of this swing would be where I would be looking for next. So yeah, I really do like how this is holding above this 200-day moving average and setting up for another swing higher. Okay, let's talk about GROK, which was a pretty nice short for me, and the reason that I love it when I get this textbook equal measured move. I marked it with orange lines, but let's draw it like this. This is what I mean. So there's this tool here where you can project. So if I measure from the low to the high of this first swing, and I project it from the bottom of this lovely 3-wave correction here in GROK. Got Heikin-Ashi candles on, I'll put regular candles on. So you can see from this low to this high, projected from here, we made an equal measured move level. And for me, when you break underneath the 61.8 fib level, so when you know, 3-wave corrections are usually equal measure moves, but quite often the third leg is only 61.8 of the first leg. So this was the first resistance. When we got above it, it became support, and when we broke back underneath it, that was bearish. So I was watching this, and if this was going to keep going higher, then 0.018 was important support, and we broke it. So underneath it, now that we've got this big 3-wave correction, I have to say that the first most common retrace of a big 3-wave correction like this is you put your fibs on both swings, so both legs, not just the most recent one. And you first of all, I look at them and say, is the market reacting at them? And we can say yes, we got a good reaction to this 236 and the 38.2, and here at the 50%, it's a little bit messy at 61.8, but they are. But the most common retrace of an equal measured move like this is the 786 fib, which is down here at 7992, 0.007992. So this has the look of a bear flag. I think that this is consolidating sideways, and unfortunately in GROK we should see one more swing lower before we potentially make a bottom and turn higher again. I am wrong if we go back above this 61.8 level at at 0.016 or 16,000, 0.016. I am wrong, and we are on our way up again. We could also draw this again as a parallel channel. So you can see that they line up, sides touch very nicely. So that would also be a breakout from this parallel channel. So we're only going to be bullish if it's back above 16,000. Otherwise, we're going to wait, because I think we're going to get a third touchdown here at 0.007992. So GROK still has further to fall from this low to this high, unfortunately. Next one I'm going to look at is Arbitrum. Now I've been long Arbitrum, and I bought it where I marked this in pink. Let's zoom out on the weekly and talk about why. As you know, I draw my fibs from the biggest swing, both swings A, B, C, and I look for this reaction at the 236 fib, which we got. It was a double top. Then we got above it and it was support. So I bought it here on this retest. And if we look here on the daily, this was the kind of retest here where I bought it, anticipating a swing higher. Now, whenever you do that, again, because this looks like a lovely three-wave correction, what you really don't want to see is this be another three-wave correction, because if it is, this is likely the first leg, second leg, and you're going to do a bigger one, or at least come all the way back to my entry, which I wasn't thrilled about. So because this was here, if I measure this at the moment, this again is one of those equal measured move. Now, we reversed at the equal measure move. We have not yet closed back underneath the 61.8 level in this previous high at 1.068. But if we do, then unfortunately we're likely to come back. Now, I usually go down a time frame and put Heikin-Ashi on to get out, and I wait for, and I put my stop under the first red candle. Here I didn't, on the daily, I kind of missed it because it was the weekend, so I didn't get out at such a good price. I got out underneath this candle, and it was really spiky, and I had a pretty shit time with this, to be honest, because you always think when, oh my god, I got out and it's going higher, and then of course, you know, anyway. We are holding support at the moment. I'm waiting to see if this turns into a nice buy, and I might well get back in Arbitrum, but I'm not going to do it tonight. I am going to wait. So I like the setup. I think this is all still corrective, and if we take everything else off, I kind of do like how we're holding above these daily moving averages. I just don't want this to be a bigger kind of 1, 2, 3 correction. One thing we can also say, if this is the lowest low and this potentially is a wave one, you know, these highs really, we can stay bullish while we stay above these highs and this round number one. So yeah, looking forward to jumping back in for this one and some more upside. So my first target is 1.27, which is 50% retrace of this big high to low in this previous swing high. In a fifth wave, but I think we could potentially go beyond it, but that would be my first target anyway. So we'll see where we go from there. INJ is another one that I have been in. I'm out again and waiting for a better entry, and let me explain why and what I'm looking for. So this is another AI coin. So big picture in this one. Again, let's go to the weekly. Did a lovely, a bit like, this is so much like Bitcoin, isn't it? A lovely 5-wave rally, and then we had this big 3-wave correction, and then off we went up again here, and it's exploded. Hopefully Bitcoin does the same, and we just go sideways in a really nice correction before we continue. So for me, if I put my fibs on from this low to high, as long as we don't break this, and this is all the way from the low of this whole move, as long as we don't break this 236 fib, we are just in choppy sideways correction, which we have been now for 5 weeks. But a close underneath it would suggest a bigger pullback, and it's at 14.89. And so within this range, I'm always trying to buy the low of a range for it to turn up again. I'm looking at this now. I think we did, again, 1, 2, 3 down, 1, 2, 3 up, and I'm waiting for this last leg of correction to reset, for this to reset to be going up again. So I think it is nice sideways bullish correction and has potentially more upside. But if we were to get underneath 14.89 and it were to become resistance, I think we could see a bigger pullback. So I'm going to sit on my hands and wait. So yeah, those are the ones that I'm looking at. There are some that I'm not buying at all that I think look terrible. For example, BNB is really not doing very well at all, and there are a few out there, but if there's one you'd like me to chart for you, let me know and send me a message and I'll do it if you think you've got a good one.